Hero here for Umbra Games with a review of Shovel Knight, originally released on PC, 3DS, and Wii U in 2014, released on PS3, PS4, Vita, and Xbox One in April of 2015, and Nintendo Switch in March of 2017. Played on a PlayStation 4 physical copy for this review, in a local pass-the-controller session with my good friend White Gravy. The game does have a local co-op mode, but it disables all feats and trophies, so we decided to stick to one player. It's kind of funny with human nature that what we want we can't get, and don't want what we have. Either that or our wants and desires are just cyclical. This is greatly illustrated looking at where we are and where we've come from in games. My parents had an Atari 2600 before I was born, and I've grown up on games all my life. I remember the 2D platforming era, where then we'd get something like Rescue the Embassy Mission on NES that had a simulated first-person section, or we'd get a JRPG like Dragon Warrior in Final Fantasy, and it was just nice to have a change. And then the market would flood. Now the Western RPG, with all of its new mechanics, seems to have taken the reins, and when a turn-based RPG shows up, I'm super happy. First-person shooters progressed from Wolfenstein 3D to Doom, where it was almost an arena-style shooting, then all of a sudden crates were in every shooter, then the next advent was waist-high walls to take cover behind, then everything took on cinematic emphasis with a corridor-level design before the fantastic reboot of Doom took us back to what it used to be, and it was so refreshing. I also remember being inundated with 3D collection platforms for a while, another genre we just rarely see anymore. Then comes Shovel Knight, Yacht Club Games' nearly perfect transport back to the 2D action platformer days. I don't believe we're quite NES style because the color palette's a little more diverse and the simulated chiptunes use more sounds and notes than it could, but here we have a game that doesn't merely prey on our nostalgic heartstrings, but instead makes a game that feels like it could have existed in that era, taking all the great parts about them, and imagines where it could have been if there was another 2D generation. This game keeps coming to my attention because Yacht Club continues to put out ports, expansions, and new content, including a new set of amiibo to go along with the previously released Shovel Knight one sometime in 2018. Now in the game, our titular hero that wields a shovel is adventuring with what we assume is his girlfriend, Shield Knight, into the Tower of Fate. Some magic strikes, and when Shovel Knight awakens, he finds Shield Knight is gone, and the tower has sealed itself. Shovel Knight then chooses a life of digging solitude in his grief, leaving the world without heroes. While he's gone, an Enchantress and her Order of Knights begin causing havoc, causing Shovel Knight to once again take up the spade and go into action. As mentioned, Shovel Knight is a 2D action platformer, and I add the action because as opposed to something like Super Mario Bros., where the emphasis is on reaching a flagpole or just getting to the end, Shovel Knight provides multiple ways to take down foes, and you'll spend just as much time, if not more, doing that rather than platforming, more akin to the classics like Ninja Gaiden or Mega Man, complete with boss battles. You can attack with a shovel in a horizontal poking-like motion, and also attack enemies from above by holding down while jumping, NES DuckTales Scrooge McDuck style. Shovel Knight also can obtain various relics that perform attacks at the expense of magic, by hitting up on the controller and pressing the attack button, like in the NES Ninja Gaidens and also Castlevanias. Shovel Knight collects gems and gold from killing enemies and from treasure chests, and that currency can be used to buy said relics, and also purchase increases to maximum health and magic, and a couple different equipment options. You can buy 3 different power-ups for the shovel that will always be present and stack on each other, or different colors of armor that have a unique trait that are often balanced by a negative one, increased magic but lower defense for example. These may be the weakness in the upgrades, in that I never really had a piece of armor that I couldn't wait for the money to save. I kinda just bought them to have them. We'll say there was a bit of a learning curve in play control regarding acceleration and stopping. I can pick up a Mario game at nearly any time in my life and be able to stop where I want from a jump on a dime. Yeah, that probably comes from years of multiple playthroughs, but there were jumps in Shovel Knight I probably could have done no sweat in a Mario game that were kinda difficult here. Jumping over an enemy and being able to downstrike them should also be cake, but I felt like an amateur at times when I'd just miss, expecting my momentum to carry me further than I did. Again, just something that takes practice, and there's nothing wrong with that. Stages are multiple screen affairs with both horizontal and vertical scrolling. You can choose your stage using a world map very similar to Super Mario Bros. 3, 4-way paths with nodes. In addition to the game's stages, there are villages and other places of interest, and occasionally you'll get a roaming battle or a gem collection stage. While the game does present you with some options on which stage and boss you can tackle next, there are locks on the path requiring you to take down 2 or 3 specific ones at a time before you can access the pathway to the next set. A lot of the stages have a mini-boss or giant creature of some sort, reminiscent of Mega Man level designs, and the main 8 stages have you squaring off against one of the game's colorful antagonists, whose levels are perfectly themed to their thing. Plague Knight's Green Rats and Dark Laboratory, King Knight's Castle, Tinker Knight's Workshop all provide a solid diversity of themed levels. Levels are also chock full of secrets, most often found in the form of breakable walls, where you can find treasure chests, secret rooms, or life-refilling turkey. Now, one newer mechanic we see in Shovel Knight, for a 2D platformer, is the Dark Souls die and lose stuff unless you can get back to that stuff in the next attempt. In this case, it's Shovel Knight's money. A significant portion of your cash can be seen floating in flying bags over the place where you last fell. Retrieving the cash can be difficult at times, depending on where you've lost it, but the fishing pole can be used sometimes to help scoop it up at the cost of magic. Now, you can re-enter levels you've previously completed if you need more cash for that next life or magic upgrade, but the in-level struggle with losing that money is the presence of a blue chest found in the main 8 stages. If you find this chest, a merchant will pop out offering you the item inside for less than what he will sell it to you later in the village. If you don't have the cash at the time, then you'll miss the areas in the level on that playthrough that are only accessible via the new relic he offers as well. One of the risk versus reward choice you can make is literally destroying checkpoints for money. There are 4 or more of these globes per level, and upon death, you'll respawn at the last one you touched. If you want to take the risk, though, you can break that globe for money, but lose the ability to restart there. Now, if you know you have an easy patch between 2 checkpoints, you might be more apt to take the cash. It's always going to be up to you. Now, I mentioned fishing. You'll occasionally see sparkling spots and pits where Shovel Knight can cast and draw up either a life-filling potion, assuming you have the Troupple King's Chalice, that's a combination of trout and apple, a gold fish worth 350 gold, or the game's main collectible, music sheets, which can be given to the bard in town for 500 gold each, and allow you to change the music in the village to any of the tunes you've collected. Let's talk about that music. Shovel Knight's soundtrack truly is chiptune style in all of its glory. The difference in melodies and sounds between the dozens of tracks, though, is absolutely remarkable. I've actually even listened to it a few times since finishing the game. I know the retro-style games aren't necessarily everyone's thing, but the love, effort, and attention Yacht Club Games put into Shovel Knight is so apparent, from its art to its gameplay mechanics to its music. When I popped in my physical copy, I even had an update that gave me the option to play through the game as Plague Knight, as well as an entirely new campaign playing as Spectre Knight. Both of these were bosses in the game. Now, some of the stages are obviously close to the originals, but the moveset and story change can easily provide motivations to play through again. There are also feats tied into PlayStation trophies that provide extra challenges, including discoverable side events, using relics particular ways, and completing the main story points. There's also an increasingly difficult set of challenges to really test out your shoveling skills. I know I'm pretty late to the game here, but if you enjoy a bit of retro, and with the flood of indie titles out there aren't sure where to best spend some time, check out Shovel Knight. Uses classic games as inspiration, not the sole selling point, some great risk versus reward mechanics, a great diversity of levels, enemies, and bosses, beautiful pixel art, a great soundtrack, and fun little side content to discover and complete, with a ton of replay value with the additional character campaigns. Rated as a 2D action platformer, Shovel Knight hits an 89 out of 100 on my 1 to 100 scale, with 50 being an average game. This is Giro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching. Continuing to cover retro and new, please subscribe to the channel for notifications of new videos, or follow me on Twitter @Umbra Games.